Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good day, good night, good everything. This session, I wanted to talk to you all about knowing your value before the courtship. Now, there are a couple of videos that I've made so far about or directed to those of us who are waiting on God for our spouses, for our mates. But I wanted to also talk about knowing your worth as a woman, as God's created daughters. Because a lot of times we actually don't know how valuable we are. We don't know how valuable we are. We don't have a proper perspective of God, how God sees us. Because if we did, I think a lot of things would not happen. When you know your value and you remind yourself that you were given as a gift, you will treat yourself a certain way. You will market yourself a certain way, and you won't allow someone else to come in and treat you as if you have no worth. And I think a lot of times we have to, as women, we have to be more encouraging of one another. We have to be more encouraging of one another, and we have to build others up, especially our young ladies. We have to learn how to build them up so that some knucklehead person, somebody's knucklehead son, won't just be able to come up to her and just, say whatever he wants to say and lead her in the wrong direction. Because remember, if you are waiting on God for your spouse, that means that you are believing that he has someone or a specific type for you. Because I don't know if I just believe that there's one person in the world for us. I think that is a little bit risky, but I do believe that God has a certain type that he wants for us. I think that he has a certain type that he has designed for us, for our personalities, for our calling, for who he intends for us to be. And so that's kind of how I look at things. But I also want us to just always remember how valuable we are and that we were originally given as a gift to the man. And if we think about gifts, no one really gives a gift with the hopes of it being rejected or mistreated or sold or devalued or pawned by the recipient. So that means that if we were given or supposed to be given as a gift to the man, we should not have that expectation of ourselves either. A lot of times we don't even realize how much God values his daughters. When he calls us the weaker vessels, he's not saying because we don't really have anything to offer. I think that he's saying that he's more protective of us, in my opinion. So I'm going to read through Proverbs, or from Proverbs 31, and then I'm going to go over some things that I wanted to share with you all. The reasons we should know our worth before we start to court anyone, and during that courtship as well. Proverbs 31, and this is the when it starts to talk about the virtuous wife. Chapter 10. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband safely trusts her, so he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and willingly works with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She also rises while it is yet night and provides for her household food and a portion for her maidservants. She considers a field and buys it. From her profits she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and strengthens her arms. She perceives that her merchandise is good, and her lamp does not go out by night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff and her hand holds the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor. Yes, she reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household is clothed with scarlet. She makes tapestry for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies sashes for the merchants. Then it says, strength and honor are her clothing. So the reason that she is able to do, the virtuous woman, the virtuous wife, is able to do all of those things that seem like they would just wear down the average person, is because she is clothed with strength and honor. She shall rejoice in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She watches over the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. I like that. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is passing, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. Now, when I first used to read Proverbs 31, you all starting with verse 10, it made me tired. I was like, no, wait, hold up. And now if I got to do all that, I don't know, it might not be a good idea, because I just saw her doing everything. I'm like, I see no verses in here where it says she was able to sit down somewhere. I see nothing in here that says, my girl get a little rest. But as I've gotten older and more mature, I looked and I read it differently, because the Lord is saying the reason why she was able to do all of those things that you read about, I'm showing you all how much I put in her. I'm showing you all how much I put in my created women. I'm showing you that if I say that she is more valuable, that her worth is far above rubies, it's because I have placed so much in her. The ability to do so many things, the ability to give birth and to provide for her children, the ability to be able to take care of her household and to take care of her husband, the ability to be able to look out for her maid service, the ability to be able to take care of the field, take care of her environment. I've given her, I've put so much in her, and she has, and because there's so much in her, there's so much to be valued about her. And remember, he also says, and the reason that she's able to do all of these things is because strength and honor are her clothing. So she's not worn down by the foolishness of life. She does not allow herself to be her time to be consumed and maltreated by people, because people will take your time, and time is something that we cannot get back, and they will abuse your time. So he's saying that and I thought about it. I said, well, you know what? To be honest, I think that I've given up a lot of time to people and things that did not deserve my time. So whereas she, instead of her being on the internet surfing through nonsense, because I've done it and I still do it sometimes when I get bored, I find myself online looking at multiple titles and I don't read any of them. So he's saying she has the same 24 hours of the day that you have. It's just what she did during that time was something that will come back and ultimately bless her. What she did with the time that she was given blessed not just her, but blessed her family. So God is showing us, I wrote down some notes, you all, and I usually don't do this. I usually just wing it. But one of the points is God is showing us that he didn't just put life in us as women. He didn't just put life in us. He put enough in us to sustain the life that he gave us. That is value. Now, in order to do all that God has called you to do, you have to be able to acknowledge what's in you. You have to be able to acknowledge what's in you. And that is so very important, because we realize that we live in a time that society is basically telling us that all we are cute faces and shapely bodies. But God is saying, no, you are so much more than that. And he reminds us, he says, charm is deceitful and beauty is passing. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Now, that's not saying that we don't need to be taking care of ourselves, and that, you don't want to look nice and presentable, and that you don't want to keep your hair done and take care of your bodies, and you just kind of let yourself go. That's not what he's saying. He's saying, but that's not all. What happened was, I gave you a beautiful covering of something even more beautiful. So don't just concern yourself with the external part of you. You have to make sure that your heart is right. He says that when she opens her mouth, she speaks wisdom. The reason why she is able to speak wisdom is because she spends time with the Lord, and he tells her what to say. The reason why she has success is because she spends time with the Lord, and he tells her what to do. So we have to remember that how God sees us, he sees us as value. So when he gave Eve to Adam, all jokes aside, she was supposed to be adding to him. She was supposed to be adding to him. Now, I wrote down 7 things that I feel like knowing your worth before the courtship will do. The first thing is that it will let you know if that man is not right for you. If you know your value and you get, Billy Bob Wonka Wonk, who comes to you and he just doesn't care how he speaks to you, and he doesn't care, how he treats you, and he treats you like you're worthless, you understand that, I'm worth a lot more than you even realize. And I don't mean material things, you all. Don't ever think that I'm talking about just material things or primarily material things. But you can tell how people see things by how they treat them. You can tell when somebody cares about their cars because they keep them clean and they keep them maintained. You can tell when they care about their relationships because they spend time with those relationships. They check on the people that they care about. They extend themselves. They make themselves uncomfortable to a certain extent if that means that the other person will be okay. So you have to know your value, so that when that man comes, if he starts to treat you like you're not valuable, that means that he doesn't see your worth. And it's not your responsibility to try to make him see your worth. The second thing I said knowing your worth will do is it will remind you not to feel pressured to go outside of God's will to keep him. And this is so important. This is something that I've learned from personal experience, because sometimes you'll get a guy and you feel like you have to, jump through hoops just to keep him, try to get his attention. But when you know your value, your worth, you'll know that man sees you beyond, a fleshly act or, anything. He sees you as someone who God adores, and he wants to see you the way that God sees you, and he wants to treat you in such a way that our Father would be proud of him. Thirdly, I said knowing your worth will help you to be secured in knowing that for the right man you are enough. You should not have to completely change who you are to make somebody else want you or to be comfortable around you. You do not have to always feel, or should not always feel, like you have to, be dressed to the nine, and I always got to have my hair done. I can't have anything wrong. I have to be flawless. Because for the right man, you are enough. For the right man, when he sees you, if he sees you how God has created you as a woman of value and worth, he's not just stuck on one thing about you, and he's not trying to nitpick you apart. Because those are the guys that no matter what you do, they'll always find something wrong with you. And that's not something that you even want in your life, because if they start picking you apart, they'll pick you down to nothing. So just remember that for the right man, you really are enough. And if the one that you're with is always trying to find fault in you, he's not doing what he's supposed to do, because God has called us to build each other up. And someone who sincerely cares about you, even if he's correcting you or even if he's trying to help you develop, he's doing it in a way that you're going up and not down. He's not doing it in a way that you're being broken by his words or his actions. Number 4, knowing your worth will remind you that you do not have to perform. You do not have to show up as someone else. You can show up as who you are and not have to feel like you have to pretend to be someone that you're not. Because if you perform, it's realistically you can only keep that up for so long. Performance means that you're acting, and at some point who you are will show up. That's just life. Who you are will show up. One day you're going to wake up and you're going to get tired of pretending to be somebody else. So knowing your value, knowing your worth, it will remind you that you don't have to perform for anybody, because you are enough. Of course, we always want to be better. We want to get better. We want to grow. We want to grow in our relationship with Christ. We want to grow in our relationship with our friends, those godly friends that he gives us. We want to be better at our jobs. We don't want to be low performers, but we don't want to ever have to feel like God created us accidentally, or that he created us so that we can become someone else. So no, we don't need to feel like we should perform. Knowing your worth, for number 5, also reminds you to stay present. What does that mean, to stay present? That means that as women, society, I feel like, puts so much pressure on us. And sometimes they make it seem like the only thing that we're supposed to do is that we're supposed to be wives, we're supposed to be mothers, we're supposed to be good daughters, we're supposed to be good sisters. And all of that is true, but these are all roles that we play. It's kind of like the Proverbs 31 woman. She had many roles as a woman, but she wasn't restricted to one. She was valuable in her actions. She was valuable in her approach. She was valuable in the words that she says. As a person, God valued her, and he put enough in her for her to do all the things that he has called her to do. So when we think about it, you have to stay present. So no, you don't have to like something because somebody else likes it. We see that a lot all the time. You know, you get to a place when you're in a relationship sometimes that you don't even remember what you liked. You know, it's like, well, what do you want to eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? Well, where do you want to go? Well, I'll go wherever you take me. Stay present. You know what you like. You know what you don't like. You know the places you want to be, and you know the places you don't want to be. And if you don't, that means that you've allowed all the people around you to absorb you, to consume you, to erase you. And that was never God's will or purpose for your life. If God didn't want you present, he would not have created you. So we really don't have to feel like we have to take a back seat to everything. You have to be present, and it matters how you feel. It should matter to you how you feel. It should matter to you if you're okay. Not in a way that causes you to be selfish, but in a way that causes you to stop and say, you know what? This is about all I can handle right now. You know what? I'm going to bed. You know what? I'm going to get some rest. You know what? I'm going to spend some time with myself, just me and my word. I'm about to take a walk. I'm going to press pause right here, because I feel like I'm losing myself behind everybody else's stuff, because that won't do you any good. God does not want us to be crushed by the very things that he's given us to bless us. So no, you can't be erased. So knowing your value as a woman means that you remind yourself. It gives you permission to stay present. Number 6, I said knowing your worth, knowing your value will keep you from establishing ungodly soul ties, and that's emotional and physical. And when we say ungodly soul ties, that means that it will stop you from connecting with the wrong people, be that emotionally or physically. Some people don't deserve you. Some people don't deserve your time. Some people don't deserve for you to keep going and checking on them, because they're just kind of like leeches. They're just consuming you, because when somebody actually cares about you, they're going to say, you know what? Let me turn the tables for a minute. Are you okay? Is there anything that I can do for you? Do you need me to help you with anything? And we don't really get that a lot. And we don't get it, I think, as much as we should get it, because a lot of times we make things seem so easy. But you want to make sure that you take those moments, and that you recognize when there's someone in your life who's there to consume you, because you don't want to establish any permanent ties with them, be those ties emotional or physical ties, because if they're not of God, then they really will wear you down. So knowing your worth will stop you from establishing these ties, because you're going to look at that situation and you're going to say, you know what? I give myself permission for this situation to be one that I don't get involved in, but I will pray for you. Like, I can't get involved in this with you because it's not for me to get involved with, but I will pray for you. And then the last one, I put knowing your worth will remind you that you are there to build and to be built up, not to break and be broken. And I don't even think that requires a lot of explanation. Knowing your worth reminds you that you are there to build. You're there to build. When you're in a place, if you're walking in your calling and you're doing what God has called you to do, that place should be better because you're there. So you're there to build, but you're also should be getting built up at the same time, because God gives us strength to do those things that he wants us to do. Not to break, not to allow whatever situation you're in to break you, or those people who you're around to break you, or be broken. Because there are some people out here, you all, who will really break you down if you allow them. And so you have to know before you go into this courtship that your role is I'm a builder. But not only am I a builder, I deserve someone who wants to build me as well. Because I told you all before, I believe in reciprocity. And as I stated in the previous video, the Bible says 2 is better than 1, because they have a good return for their reward. So that means that both people should be better because of the servant mindset of the other. And so when you know your worth before the courtship, you're going to have this mindset that I'm not going to be a consumer. I'm not going to make my husband's life any harder than it already will be just by walking through this life. This thing called life is tough. So we don't want to be something else that he has to do. We don't want to be the reason or part of the reason that he struggles, because we're there to build. But at the same time, you have to remind yourself that you have enough value that when God sends you someone, he's going to send you someone who wants the same for you. He's not going to send you someone that just decides that, you know what, this is all the stuff you gonna do for me. I got a whole list of stuff. You gonna do for me. But I'm not gonna do anything for you. Good luck. No, that's not him. That's not him. I've been in situations like that. I didn't last very long because I didn't feel like I didn't feel like it was God's will for me to be getting crushed by somebody else's weight. And I definitely didn't feel like it was God's will for me to be attached to someone who couldn't stop long enough to make sure that I was okay sometimes. But this is mainly what I wanted just to remind you all. And I also have some other notes that I wanted to share with you all. I put, remember that any man from God will see your value and treat you as such. He will value you because God values you. And I actually like the thought of that. Like, he will value you because he knows that our Father values you. So he's not going to mistreat you. He's not going to, abuse you. He's going to see you through the eyes of God. And when God gives you to him, he's going to know that God didn't give you to that man to be mistreated by, or to be just the helper for that man, to be his support. He's going to look at you and say, you know what, I need to take care of you. The way that I'm going out taking care of my cars, and I'm going out taking care of this yard, if I can go to my job and make sure that I'm doing my job correctly, and I can hang out with my friends and make sure they're okay, he's going to look at you and esteem you as even higher than that, because he knows that you are a gift from God. So I said, okay, lastly, and I'm winding this up, if you are with someone, and I mean this one, if you are with someone you have to force to respect you or treat you like you matter to God and them, then maybe he isn't for you. If you keep having to demand respect, and I mean like when you know that you're doing what you're supposed to do, you all. Now, if you have bad habits and bad behavior, you probably need to get yourself together. If you cussing him out and he cussing you back out, you probably need to work on that, because it's still the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And there's still an expectation. But if that's the type of volatile relationship you all have, then is it worth it? Is it worth it? And can you really say that this man is someone who even respects God enough to treat you, any kind of way? Because if he doesn't have a fear of God, or if he doesn't respect God himself, or if he doesn't know the word of God, then you really can't expect him to see you through, or to have value for you as God values you. With that said, and I'm not talking to married people. Once you're married, you have to go to God. You have to go before God about your marriage. I'm talking to single people, or those who are in relationships, you're not married. Ask yourself, if I'm honest, does he even have any respect for God to treat me any way, any type of way? Does he have the Holy Spirit enough where I'm praying for him and the Holy Spirit can actually deal with him? Does he even know the word enough to be able to see that he's not doing right by me according to the word? So that means that you might have to remove yourself from it, and allow God to decide what to do during this intermission. And like I said, if he chooses to reunite you all, that's his choice. If he chooses to say, you know what, daughter, I know you love him, and you may even have a son or a daughter by him, but he's just not what I wanted for you. It's not what I want for you. So you have to be willing to take that chance and to just go on your own. And another thing, you all, that we have to remember, if in order to when we talk about knowing your worth, before the courtship, pay attention to what you're doing while you're waiting. I mean, if you hanging out with all these guys and you still doing certain things, y'all know what I'm talking about, then we can't say that we're waiting. If you fondling this and being fondled by that, you got your left foot in, you got your right foot out, that's not a wait. That's an in-between time. You're not waiting on, you might be waiting on your husband, but you're not waiting for him. I like that. You might be waiting on him, but you're not waiting for him. Because when you're waiting for him, you just don't engage in certain activities. You might have to clean house because he shouldn't have to come and recover you from the damage that will be done by this person that you're with when you know you're ultimately not going to be with him. Because I've loved relationships, you all, that I wanted. That it was a couple of them, only two really, that I really did want to be with them, but I knew it wouldn't go any further than it was, and I knew it wasn't what God wanted for me. You know, like I said, sometimes you leave a relationship and God may say, hey, while you're over there, I'm going to work on you, and while he's over here, I'm going to work on him. And then when I get both of you ready for me, then I'll let you all be ready for each other. But you have to give him that option to do that. But know your worth, know your value, know who you are, know how God sees you before you go into this courtship period. Because not only will it help you know how far to go, what you're going to do. But it also will remind you of what you should be expecting. You should expect somebody who sees you through God's eyes, and you should expect them to want to treat you a certain way, God's way. Remember, you all, Jesus has never mistreated us, and he died for us. He never came back and said, well, because I died for you, you owe me this, that, and the other. That's not how he doesn't handle us like that. So that means that whoever God sends to us, he's not going to handle us either. If he does handle us, it will be with care. So know your worth. You really are valuable. We really are valuable. We are valuable because God said so. But thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next video. Have a great week. Bye-bye.